Dad, you gotta stop shaving. It's time for the show.
What?
You gotta stop shaving. It's time for the show.
I want to look good for the show.
Why?
For the webcam.
We don't have a webcam.
What do you mean we don't have a webcam? Is it broken?
No, we've never had a webcam this whole time.
What?
So they're in there crawling on their hands and knees on these little crooked tunnels. Miners are known for this. Poor old Carl just about had a heart attack right on the spot.
Hi, welcome back to Comedy Parenting Radio. My name's Jerry Begley. We're up in here, Studio B today, and I've got my good friend Stan up here. We're going to be talking about underground stories from mining, coal mining stories today, coming up on Comedy Parenting Radio. Welcome, Stan.
Hello.
Glad to have you here. We'll be back in just a moment.
Tree Sock Press sells the books that stay on your shelves. When you want books that your guests pick up and read and can't put down, make sure it's one of Tree Sock Press's comedy books. Get a copy of her new book, Dad, the Tooth Fairy Didn't Come, and your kids will want you to read it over and over and over until you pull what little hair you have left out. When you pitch old books out into the gutter, you'll feel complete guilt if it's a Tree Sock Press book. Get your Tree Sock Press book wherever lousy comedy books are sold. Tree Sock. It stays on your shelf.
Doop-a-doop-doop-doop-a-doop-a-doop-doop.
We're back with Comedy Parenting Radio here in Studio B. Stan, glad to have you up here. And what's especially cool for me to have you up here is I'm looking out the window at White House Mountain, Treasure Mountain, and you used to live up there, didn't you?
I did. I lived in a little old rustic cabin right up there in the saddle. And then my son lived up there all summer mining for silver in the Little Darling mine.
What is the elevation where you were living?
Oh, brother. Must be close to 13, you think?
Yeah, well, we're above timberline up there, aren't we? I see roads right now that are above timberline, so that's 12,000 plus, huh?
You know, there's a mining story right there. I'll just tell you quickly. My teenage son living up there, and they were being paid by the foot, I do believe, to explore a silver mine. And these guys are...
I got a question about by the foot. Is there a standard height and width on that,
Well,
too?
that's the thing. For that reason, it's very low and very narrow because you're only getting paid by the horizontal foot.
Right.
So they're in there crawling on their hands and knees on these little crooked tunnels.
Oh, my word.
And they crawl all the way back there, and they drill a hole, and they stick the dynamite in there, and then they crawl all the way out, and then they blow the thing up. Then they crawl back in with buckets, and they're hauling ore out on their hands and knees with buckets, if you can believe
not like
that.
A little track with a car or any of that stuff.
No, that's way too mechanized.
Oh, my word.
Tough stuff.
When they do the dynamite, is this like an electronic thing, or do you light a fuse, or how does that work?
Yeah, it's electronic.
Electronic, so you stick it in there, and then you go out with the wire.
Fire in the hole! Fire in the hole! Fire in the hole! Kaboom!
You know, I got a quick story on that one. Up at the Glenwood Caverns, when they made the tunnel into the barn area in about 1998, 99-ish, they did the last charge. They set it there, and they went outside of the tunnel, which is about 100 feet long, and went around the corner.
Right.
And when they torched it off, all the smoke and the dust and everything came flying out the tunnel like they always had seen it happen. However, that actually knocked into the cave. And so what happened is all the smoke and dust came out. The guy told me the story who did it. It hung in midair for just a second, and it sucked it back into the cave.
Oh, yeah.
He said it was kind of creepy to see all this stuff go out, stop, and then go back in like a giant vacuum
forces.
cleaner.
Yes, that's good. I like
negative
that.
pressure in the cave. Anyway, so you were a miner. Where were you a miner at?
Oh, boy. I worked underground at several mines, number 1 and number 3, up at what was called Anschutz. Anschutz had been, at that time, the richest man in Colorado. That was his mine.
Really? And where's this located?
west of Carbondale, Colorado. Carbondale.
Oh.
Right.
Carbondale.
So, Carbon City, Carbon Valley, yeah.
Like carbonation?
I'll tell you something. I'll tell you a quick one here because this is cute and it's true. A friend of mine was working down in 3 or 1. One of those at the Anschutz mine, and he was drilling holes in the roof and then bolting the roof so that the roof doesn't cave in on you.
How long are these bolts?
They could be 6 feet or 8 feet or 10 feet or 12 feet, right? Mm-hmm. You're trying to laminate all that strata over your head. And it takes 2 to make a bolting team. Well, his partner, his bolter helper, as they say, was not in very good condition that day, let's put it that way. And so he says, pardon me, I'm going to go back in the return and wrap up in some Bradis and go to sleep for a while.
What's Bradis?
It's this plastic-covered burlap.
Okay.
Miners are known for this.
For wrapping
They'll
up.
They'll roll up as if they were a Frankfurter or a hot dog or something. They roll up, and that's the last you're going to see of them for 8 hours, right?
Oh, my word.
So
how does any mining ever get done when they do this?
It always makes you, yeah, exactly. So his buddy was back in the return, sound asleep, rolled up in the Bradis, and he's in there by himself bolting, and along comes a person he had never seen before. But this person said, looks like you need a hand. Can I help you? And my buddy Bob said, sure, please do. So the other guy turned out to be quite the bolter helper.
Ooh. Kept
handing the bolts to him, and they just really made some good progress and put in a lot of bolts that day. They're called pins.
Okay.
So Bob came out at the end of the shift, and he told the guys in the bathhouse, he said, man, did I ever have one good bolter helper today? And they said, describe him. So he described the man, and they said, well, that's Mr. Anschutz, the owner of the coal mine. The richest man in Colorado was his bolter helper that day.
Wow. A little bit of leadership there.
So everybody was impressed. He said, that's one whale of a bolter helper. That man, I'd have him on my crew any day.
Wow.
So he was not always sitting behind a desk shuffling papers, right?
Now, what year was this, do you think?
Oh, this was back in the 70s.
Went out and helped him in his own mine.
Yeah. Isn't that cool?
There you go. I like that one.
You're listening to Comedy Parenting Radio.
Ranger Station.
Hi, I want to report a bear sighting.
Location.
My front door. It was Smokey Bear. My husband was burning leaves in the yard. He just came inside for a second.
Never leave a fire unattended. If it's too hot to touch, it's too hot to leave.
Smokey said that too.
We go way back. I knew him when he was just a cub.
How cute.
If you see someone in danger of starting a wildfire, step in and make a difference. Brought to you by Smokey Bear, the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council. Learn more at SmokeyBear.com.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
This is how you get places. Socializing with the higher-ups.
You are without doubt the worst pirate I've ever heard of.
But you have heard of
me. Stanley, you were mentioning people wrapping up and going to sleep, and I used to be a snowmaker up at Buttermilk Ski Area in Aspen. And actually, we didn't really get to go to sleep and slough off that way, except for when they gave us training for night work. And they talked about sleeping at night and how people want to go to sleep and all. And there was a story of one of the nuclear power plants here in America had a surprise inspection.
Whoa.
And they went in there. Every single person in the plant was asleep. They all had their little nooks and crannies.
It gives you a real sense of security, doesn't it?
I know. It's like that power plant was like a train full speed ahead, and nobody was running the thing. You're listening to Comedy Parenting Radio. We'll be back in just a moment.
Is this really frozen or is
No, it's a piece of wood.
What?
A piece of wood in there.
Well, that's not a good buy, is it?
Okay, you're back. Comedy Parenting Radio. We got Stan up here in the studio talking about stories from underground, and we were talking about sleeping in the mine. It's not always like always hard work, 8 hours a day or whatever. So,
but we want everybody outside to think we're working hard down there.
Well, you're underground. How would we know? Yeah. Anything else ever happened? Anybody ever sleep?
All the time. I was an inspector. I inspected for violations of federal safety law. And I'd come walking along the drifts or along the tunnels. You know, you go by a big old gigantic power center, which are nice and toasty warm, and it's totally against the law to be sleeping on one of those things. And there's somebody laid out flat on the power center. And you just tell yourself, I didn't see that.
I didn't see it.
You just walk right on by. You know, it's kind of bizarre. And I'll tell you about my friend Jim. Interesting guy. He loved to pull pranks. Anyway, he's just kind of a character. But down in the bottom of the mine, we would have big toolboxes. And it was, you know, in the what they call C shift or graveyard shift, right?
Yeah, graveyard
People are
shift.
tired. Sometimes you have to prop your eyelids open.
Can you explain to the people why it might be called graveyard shift?
That's a good one. I've never stretched my imagination around that. I think it's just, you know, it's the middle of the night.
It's the middle of the night. Yeah. But one question about that is, you're underground. How would you even know?
Yeah, you know, I mean, what difference does it make?
It doesn't make a difference. No. Anyway, graveyard shift. You got your friend Jim.
Oh, he's down there. He's there, and he's feeling tired, and he sees a toolbox sitting over there by the railroad track, because there's a railroad that goes down the slope. Everybody goes in and out on that track.
It's a slanted railroad?
Very slanted, okay. Yeah. So he crawls into that box and shuts the lid and goes to sleep. Nobody will know the difference, right? And along comes this old character, this ancient old miner named Carl Monahan. And Carl kind of toodles over to the box to fetch a wrench or something, and he opens the lid, and lo and behold, he sees Jim down there in that box. And Jim decides he's not going to twitch a muscle. He's not going to bat an eyelash. He just lies there like that.
Still as a church mouse, quiet.
Monahan, probably not trusting his own senses, gently puts the lid back down and walks away.
Is this sort of like you, like I never saw that kind of thing?
Was I hallucinating? And then he thinks about it again, goes back over and lifts up the box another time, and there's Jim still lying there, you know, still as a mouse. And he shuts it again and walks away. And the last time he comes over, he opens it and he says, Hey! Trying to rouse him, and Jim Kropetz goes, boo! And the poor old Carl just about had a heart attack right on the spot.
Oh man, what did he think? The guy was dead or something?
Yeah, I think he thought that was it. So, I mean, why would a guy crawl in a box and die? Give me a break. But anyway,
maybe somebody put him in there. You know, the middle of the night graveyard shift.
Anyway, Jim thrived on that stuff. He loved to pull pranks on people. So. This is quick. This is a tiny anecdote. Another miner I met was Pat Minke. He wrote some anonymous letters and poems about the mine. I tracked him down since I didn't publish anonymous letters. I told him I can't publish it. So he said, well, you can't publish my name or they'll fire me. So that was how we met. He told me a great story about how Copenhagen had saved his life. He dropped his Copenhagen, and just as he bent to pick it up, there was a bump, and the floor came up 3 feet. If he'd been standing straight up, it would have driven his head into the roof. I don't know how true that is. It's a good story.
That's a great story.
Do you know Pat Minke by chance?
No.
Oh, okay.
Okay, you've been listening to Comedy Parenting Radio, talking about coal mine stories with Stan. Hey, thanks for coming out, Stan.
My pleasure.
And, you know, when you go, you can take that big old roll of Bradis with you.
Okay.
know nothing. Nothing.